So today I wanted to kind of look at how I go about designing those little Stardew Valley garden markers I like to make. This isn't how you would typically do any sort of 3D design, but it works really well if you're making like 2D pixelated art into a 3D format. I use a program called Tinkercad, which you see here. It's free and it's online based, so you can use it on any kind of computer platform you want. And the first thing I start off with is just making the work plane the same size as my 3D printer, which in this case is just a little 4x4 bed. And then I make a little 1/8 inch square that snaps to an 1/8 inch grid and start kind of drawing it out. It's really not too complicated. It's just a matter of, grabbing a source image and replicating it, which is actually pretty easy with a 3D, it's actually pretty easy with a 2D drawing. In this case, you'll see that I made the leaves on the top of this star drop here a little bit lower, and that'll come in handy later on when I paint. It's a lot easier to paint it when there's different levels to the 3D drawing. When I say lower, I mean the 1/8 inch high is no longer an 1/8 inch. It's more of a, I guess a 16th. It's not quite that, but still. And then I just paste in a little garden marker there, which is basically just a pentagon shape stretched out to stick into the dirt better. Then I use what's called Ultimaker Cura, which is a slicing program, which basically builds the 3D model so that it works with your printer. And then I take that and save it and send it over to the printer and get started. It's a pretty simple process overall, but I thought it was kind of interesting to look at how it actually goes, and watching it is kind of fun to see. Especially this part. I wish it printed this fast, but it definitely doesn't. It takes about 12 minutes, I'd say, to print it. And then the actual design for this particular item was only maybe 8 minutes, so it's pretty quick. And like I said, I'm not a professional by any means, and that's not how you would normally do any kind of 3D design, but that's how I like to do 2D sprites. And you end up with a little bit of a rough starting, but you can kind of see those different raised heights, which will make my painting easier. It's almost like creating a little paint by numbers situation for myself. Yeah, it's a little rough right now, but it doesn't need to be perfect, I could do a higher resolution, but it's just something to look nice in a garden or a little pot, And the painting process is probably the longest, especially when it comes to mixing to get the right colors. It's not something I'm particularly good at because I don't know much more than the basics. I know if I want purple, I get red and blue, and that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge. And I think in this particular case, I didn't nail the colors by any means, but I got close enough, you can still tell what it is. I think that's probably what takes the longest. The painting itself is relatively easy, especially with the ledges or the different heights. I add a little bit of white just to get it lighter. I don't need it to be a super dark color. What I actually really want is more of a pink, but I kind of missed the mark in the beginning with that. So I'm just going to start with a base coat of this kind of darker purple, which ultimately I end up painting over, but the base coat's pretty important to kind of work out some of those little grooves. I really need to get back in the habit of, painting. I should spray paint the whole thing first, just so it's a nice, clean base coat, an easy thing to start from. But, for the sake of this one, it doesn't really matter. I'm not mass producing these things or trying to sell them or anything. I don't even really need to paint these edges, but there's something satisfying about watching the mint green turn to something else. I think the hardest part about painting this is not getting the little peg there, or the little, where they meet, the design meets the peg, you know. I ended up mixing up a slightly lighter color, but I didn't really wait for this thing to dry well enough. So it kind of gave me a problem, but you can see I'm just painting on the highest level, like the highest height, because I know that's the part that needs to be the lightest, and later on I'll come back and fill in the darker pieces. I just use like little Warhammer paints. They work pretty well. It's like a base set that I use, so I kind of have to do the best I can with the colors I have. I find myself getting pretty impatient with the drying process, so I try to do different parts of it as the other parts are drying, which ends up kind of getting my fingers pretty dirty, but it's still alright. So I went and decided to start doing the darker. You'll kind of see like how easy these things paint once they have those ridges. It just kind of fills in on its own. Versus a flat plane, it's a lot harder to do. And it kind of adds a little bit of a 3D element to it, but more so it's just easy to paint. At least in my opinion. It doesn't look that much different. I probably could make it fully 3D if I wanted to. But I don't know, I'm just making garden markers now. In this case, obviously the star drop is not a real fruit, but normally mine are peppers or tomatoes or whatever it is. This one's just for demonstration. And see, I didn't do the markers on the leaves, or sorry, not the markers, I didn't do the leveling on the leaves, so it was quite a bit harder to paint these little ridges. It doesn't look as clean, but that's okay. I do kind of enjoy the process though, just painting this. It's one of the few things my hands are still like relatively good at. I don't know if you can see the weird braces on my fingers there, but my grip isn't exactly great, but my fine manipulation is pretty good. Yeah, so there's your roughly finished product. And that's just kind of a matter of finding where it's going to live. In this case, we got plenty of plants out in the back, so we just kind of pick whichever we like and toss it in there. In this case, it's this little aloe that we got for free off of somebody's porch, giving it away, so that's where it goes. Yeah, the garden's pretty slow right now still, so I thought it might be fun to look at that. So thanks for sticking around. And feel free to subscribe if you like this stuff. I know it's been pretty games heavy, but I'll have another seedling update next week, I believe. Yeah, thanks for watching.